Hey, Gene, what?
We're back again.
We are. It's good to be back again, isn't it?
It is. And this is our 5th episode. You know that number 5?
Yeah.
It means fun. Fun and adventure. We're
What
going to
did-
have a lot of fun and adventure on this show
Yeah.
because we have no clue where we're going. And you know, when you don't know where you're going, it's amazing what you stumble upon as you get there.
Well, it has a lot to do with the Holy Spirit. Let's
That's
put
right.
it that way.
Flow.
Yeah.
I have this old saying that if it don't flow, it don't go. And if it don't flow, it really don't go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
I'll walk away. Anyway, tonight, our featured guest is more what we are going to say. We're going to talk about church stories from our childhood. Now, the number 5 also rules children and childhood.
Oh, okay.
Interesting enough.
In what way? How do you explain that
It
to
rules
people?
the sign Leo,
Okay.
and Leo rules children.
Okay. Okay.
So we're going to talk about when we were children, what we went through when we went to different types of churches, some of the funny experiences we encountered along the way. And of course, if you have any funny stories, you're welcome to call in and let us know or send us an email at gene@astrologygenehart.com. We'll also have a few little bits of humor here and there, and I will be doing the astrology
For
the week ahead, the month ahead, and the year ahead. I'm going to make some comments about all kinds of things that you can find in astrology that you probably don't know you can find.
okay.
So, for instance, right now we're headed into a full moon. That full moon will be in the sign Libra on the 4th of April. So that's just next week. But what's really interesting about astrology is that when you're at a new moon,
Okay.
and in between a new moon and a full moon, it is a time to come up with great ideas and new ways of doing things. It's a time to start business. It's a time to discuss the meetings that you want to have with people and start building, start designing. In the Farmer's Almanac, and as a matter of fact, a farmer will not plant a seed unless it is between a new moon and a full moon because he knows he's not going to get a big plant.
Oh, I know. There's a major science to that.
So it is true of our own life.
Yeah.
So if you look at your new moon and your full moon every month, and that's when you plan to do the creating process, which is what number 5 rules, you'll find that whatever it is that you go after will be more successful. If you do it after the full moon to the new moon, it's sort of like a retrograde feeling. It's like you don't have any substance behind it. There's no rocket fuel.
You're a little bit after the fact then.
Right. So if you're going to do an advertising campaign, for instance, for a business, you want to do it between the new moon and the full moon because you get more bang for your buck,
Okay.
how the saying goes. But after, if we're to start that advertising campaign and in fact create it, come up with the idea after a full moon and headed toward the new moon, and this happens every month. Once a month you get a full moon, and once a month you get a new moon. Now, there is that blue moon.
Oh, yeah. We talked about that the other day. I said, Gene, what is a blue moon? And you said?
2 moons in 1 month.
Yeah.
2 full moons in 1 month.
So, blue moon. I won't do that.
Oh, please do.
Oh, no.
Yes.
You saw me standing alone. Actually, I was singing that song to myself after we had that conversation to try and figure out what the lyrics were about. And I realized that when I did the club circuit, for those 15 years or whatever, a lot of times I would just sing a song and I wouldn't pay any attention to what I was saying. But it's more fun now to look back on it once you know a little bit about what's going on.
What it means. Could you just sing like 10
Without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. And then his love turns around, see? So he finds somebody, So that's
That's the blue moon.
and that's what the song's about.
It's true. On the first full moon, it's like, oh, gosh. Then you get the mastery, and then it's just wonderful on the second full moon.
Wow. Now you teach people this, don't you?
I do.
If they
And anyway, the new moon to the full moon is such an important concept for everyone to get if they want to be successful in life. I mean, we're all making decisions all the time. We're creating ideas all the time. We're interacting with people all the time. We're starting new projects all the time. We're, between the new moon and the full moon. Pay attention. Now, the interesting thing about a new moon, full moon, is that you, according to your time, date, and place of birth, have your own personal new moon to the full moon. So just because in the sky it's a full moon does not mean it's a full moon in your personal life.
Well, now how does that work? Is that based upon your birth?
It's based on math. Yeah, your time of birth.
Okay.
So knowing your birth time is so important to be accurate in the realm of finding where your moon stands in your chart all the time.
So we would encourage people to, if they don't know the exact time of their birth, to get their birth certificate. Go into the archives of wherever you were born and get a copy of the birth certificate, because that'll have time, date, place, all that important information. And there's probably a number of people that don't have those.
I would say that 99% of the time, anybody tells me that they cannot get their time of birth, all they have to do is order their birth certificate and request. You must request to the clerk that you want the time put on the birth certificate.
Okay.
But 99% of the time, you'll get that time because they have it on the record. Unless even the hospitals are required in most all states to transfer that information to the county courthouse.
Guess what I have?
What?
I have a birth certificate that is so old that it's a photostat. You know what a photostat is?
Mm-mm.
It's black. It's a black page with white lettering.
Whoa.
That's been a while. Anyway.
We're not going to ask you how old you are.
No. Well, you can ask me questions about the Civil War. I may or may not know, but I get kidded about it. But I always like to bring up, because there's old things I remember. Anyway, I took you off course. So the birth certificate is what people need.
Birth certificate, and don't hesitate. Don't say I don't have the time of birth on my birth certificate. The reason you don't have the time of birth on your birth certificate is simply because you didn't ask for it.
Okay.
So go back, bug them. You don't necessarily have to tell them you're getting your astrology done, because then the clerk may get a little moody. And not.
So you'll want to ask that clerk at the right portion of the moon too, won't you?
Yeah, but you won't know that.
Yeah.
You'll have to call your local astrologer to get that information.
Hello, Gene.
No, so in some corners of the universe, you just don't mention the word astrology because it's got a little bit of a stigma or karma on it.
Yeah, it does.
Because people have misused it. And the weirdos, the psychic tie-dye T-shirt crazy people like Chloe, or what was her name? The famous, that there was a big deal back in the 90s. There was some great psychic who had a crystal ball. I think her name was Chloe.
Yeah.
You always called Chloe to get your life story. But see, it's things like that make astrology look bad. I mean, it is astrophysics.
Astrophysicism? Astrophysics, is it?
Yeah.
It's a more simple word, isn't it?
It is, definitely. Okay. And it's funny, an astronomer will argue about astrology. Oh, no. No way. Astrology is a bunch of hooey.
And they're tied together. Why?
But no,
why is
what's
that?
weird is that if you just experiment with it, take 2 months out of your life and just chart your moon and the keywords that it rules as it goes around your chart, you cannot deny that thing didn't happen to you or did happen to you. Whatever it activates in your chart, you can have an experience where you can go back and look at your chart and go, oh my God.
Yeah.
So it proves itself. So that's why I don't really understand the argument, except for the fact that when you're a little child, you're conditioned. You're taught what your mom and dad have to teach you, your environment. And, if you're growing up in a different type of a structure, you may be programmed to think that you can't think certain ways or look at certain things. So I'm from the school of think outside the box, and I'm from the school show me. I will tell you that I don't believe it if I can't prove it. But if I can prove it,
Yeah. And the show me comes from the Missouri situation, doesn't it?
Kansas City.
The show me state.
Kansas City.
And we have a Missouri tie. And we're going to talk about Kuan Yin a little bit later because...
Kuan Yin has a Missouri tie.
Yeah, we have a Missouri tie with Kuan Yin.
So do look forward to March 30th. That is when Mercury goes out of Pisces and starts sojourning through the sign Aries. Pisces has made a lot of us kind of run into walls when we wake up in the morning. We're kind of sleepy all day long. We're thinking things that are kind of spacey. We're not necessarily grounded in our, thought processes. We may have fear and doubt about people, trust issues about people. We may, it takes you all over these delusionary, illusionary. Mercury is the planet that rules how you communicate and how you think. It rules your mental body completely. So you always, if you want to understand your thinking processes, you want to know where your Mercury is in your birth chart, but also where is it now? And where it is now and how it affects your birth chart will tell the story of what your mood is. And you'll find a lot of people deal with depression when Mercury is in the sign Pisces, because it does tend to make you fantasize and think things aren't going to work out, or nobody will ever change, or oh, they don't like me, or
Really?
it also has you fantasizing about romance and the things that you would love to see or not get. If you feel like your dreams aren't coming true or they are coming true.
Right.
Either way you go, it's an illusion. The best use of Pisces energy is spiritual. Just get into the divine romance. Once you get the divine romance figured out, your physical romances will straighten themselves out. The divine romance, just loving God, however you perceive your God, It's like, I was thinking the other morning, this is so profound. It may sound silly to you, but I was just sitting there in my prayers. I do prayers every morning, whatever. And I was thinking, you know what? God created me. I mean, the reason I'm sitting here breathing, thinking,
is the
even
planet that rules how you
existing, is
communicate
because
and how you
somebody
think.
decided to
It rules your
make
mental
me.
body
completely.
I
So
know.
you always, if you want to
That was
understand your
so
thinking
bizarre to
processes,
think
you want
about
to know
a
where your
little
Mercury is
deeper.
in your birth chart.
It's like, wow, if I
also where
wasn't
is
made
it
by someone
now?
or something
And
amazing,
where it is
I
now and
wouldn't be
how it
sitting
affects
here.
your birth chart
So why
will
am I
tell the
always-
story of what your mood is. And you'll find
I'm
a lot of
always
people
what I
deal with
am
depression
because
when Mercury is
what
in
I
the
was
sign
made to be
Pisces.
is God.
Because it does
And you were
tend
made
to
to
make you
be
fantasize and
different,
think things aren't going to
from
work out or
another
nobody will ever
person.
change
soul
or
or
oh, they
And that's
don't like
okay.
me,
It's
or-
okay to be
in,
different.
in the same way
it also
that
has you
a
fantasizing
snowflake
about
differs from another
romance
snowflake.
and the things that
right?
you would
Not two
love to
snowflakes
see
look
or
alike.
So God
not
said,
get,
well, let's have
let
let's
there
have
be
a
feel like your
gene.
dreams
Let there be
are
gene.
where they are coming true.
in the
Let there be
universe.
Terry.
And there was a thunderclap and there was a gene.
The best use of Pisces energy
Same
is
goes for
spiritual.
Terry.
Just get into
You
the
know?
divine romance.
So I mean, it's just God
Once you got the
created you.
divine
What a joyous
romance
thing. Why
figured
would he
out,
do that?
your physical romance.
Well, he thought of it first. You didn't. You're just arguing with him by
The divine
thinking, why would he
romance,
create
man.
someone like
Just
me?
loving
I've got
God.
this and that wrong with
However
me.
you perceive your God.
Well, no, you don't.
Yeah,
It's like,
because
I was
in
thinking the other
reality, at
morning,
the
this
core,
is
you
so
don't know
for
who you
Exactly
are.
what God wants you to be.
It
You may
may
have
sound silly
put
to you,
on,
but I was just sitting
various
there in
coats
my
of,
prayers. I do prayers every morning.
Illusion.
of illusion,
Whatever.
karma,
And I
whatever you
was
want to
thinking,
call
you
it,
know
that
what?
you have
God
to
created
get
me.
rid of.
I mean, the reason I'm sitting here
retake
breathing,
your divine
thinking,
identity.
even existing,
Which is what
is because
Pisces
somebody
exactly
decided
does.
to
It
gives you
make
the
me.
illusion that I'm not worthy, I'm not
I know.
good enough. they
That
don't
was
like
so bizarre
me.
to think
Remember
about
that
a little
song we used to
deeper.
sing when we were
It's like,
little
wow,
kids?
if I wasn't made by
Nobody
someone or
likes
something
me. Everybody
amazing,
hates
I wouldn't be
me.
sitting
I'm
here.
gonna
So
eat
why am I
some
always?
worms?
Oh my
I'm-
gosh.
I'm
I never
always
sang.
what I am because what I was made to
Oh,
be.
it was a very
You-
popular
You sang
playground
that
song.
in the, like in grade school.
Ask our engineer, did you?
From another
Person.
soul.
No,
a
person.
And that's
person.
okay. Did you hear the
It's okay
song?
to be
Shaking his
different.
head in the same way
Never
that
heard that
a
song
snowflake
before?
differs from
Oh my
another
God.
snowflake. Well,
There's
that's
not
too
two
bad. That's got a
snowflakes
negative
alike.
spin on it.
Oh, it
God
does,
said,
but you know, we
well,
do.
let's
Let's
have a
need to
gene.
look at
Let there
ourselves.
be
You
gene.
know.
Gene.
And we always
In
try
the
to figure
universe.
Terry.
And there was a
Within our
thunderclap
world.
and there was a
Why
gene.
am I?
true.
Could have done this
Same
better.
goes for
I could have done
Terry.
that better.
Yeah.
Could have been this. I could have been that.
So I mean, it's
Whatever.
just God created you.
And
What a joyous
that's
thing. Why would he do that?
That's what led me to that
Well, he
thought.
thought of it first.
in
You
my
didn't. You're
prayers.
just arguing
Oh my
with him by
God,
thinking,
God
why would he
created me.
create someone like
So
me?
what
I've got this
if
and
I
that
don't
wrong
do
with
this
me.
or that right?
Well, no, you
What I will
don't.
do is strive to
Yeah,
do what I
because
think
in,
God wants me to
reality,
do,
at the
right?
core,
Right.
you don't.
Which is
You know,
everything.
and
Exactly
do it
what
better
God
next
wants you
time.
to do it better
You may
next
have
time.
put
Yeah.
on
Forgive
various
myself
coats
because
of
I didn't create me.
illusion,
of illusion,
except for that I
karma,
sort of
whatever
did.
you want to call it, is that you have
Because
to get rid of.
Somewhere in the Bible I read, ye are
retake
gods
your
and know it
divine
not.
identity.
I think
Which
it's
is
in the New
what
Testament.
Pisces
Jesus
exactly
said
does. It
I
gives
don't
you the
hear
illusion
that a lot
I'm
from the
not worthy,
pulpits
I'm
of the
not
churches. Ye are
good
gods.
enough.
Yeah,
They don't
you
like
really don't.
me.
Yeah.
Remember
In
that
fact,
song we used to
that's-
sing when we were
I
little
stumbled
kids?
upon that myself as going
Nobody
through the
likes
Bible.
me.
Everybody
hates
that's pretty
me.
profound.
I'm
I
gonna
know.
eat
No,
someone.
not.
I think we're
Oh
like
my gosh,
toddlers
I
trying to
never
figure out.
sang
We're
that.
running around in our diapers.
Oh, it was a very
You-
popular
You sang that
playground
in,
song.
like in grade school?
Ask our engineer, did you?
And the only, unfortunately, the only person
Did you
that
hear
can
the song?
change
Shaking
you
his
is
head no.
yourself.
Never heard that song
Well,
before?
the really
Oh,
neat
my
thing
God.
is to just recognize
Well,
that
that's
you
too
have
bad.
divine
That's
spark.
got a
Yeah,
negative
Spin
spin on
Oh,
it.
it does. But, you
lives
know, we
within you
do
and not
tend to
without
look
you.
at ourselves
Well,
and
that's
go,
what led to it.
we,
I'm glad
we
you
always
said
try
that,
to find
because
the
that's
hole
what
in the
led to my
donut.
thoughts.
So
I
I
was
was thinking,
what's wrong with
okay,
me? Why
am I? When I was young, I
could've
used to
done this better. I
meditate on
could've
a
done that better. I could've
candle,
been this,
and I'd
I
see the
could've been
flame on
that.
the candle.
Right.
And I
Whatever.
thought, you know, I need
And
to have that
that's
burning sensation in my
point.
heart.
That's what led me to
So
that
I'm going to see a
thought
flame in my heart.
in my prayers.
And the flame,
Oh my God,
you know, is
God
about an inch
created me.
high.
So
I was trying to figure
if
out
I
how to
don't
make
do
that
this or that,
hotter,
right?
the feeling
What
hotter.
I will do is
so that
strive
it
to do
felt
what I
more
think
like
God wants
love.
me to do, right?
And then
Right.
for some
Which
odd
is
reason that
everything.
thought
And do it
came
better
to me.
next
The reason
time.
that I
Do it better
didn't
next time.
feel
Yeah.
as
Forgive
much love as I
myself
should feel
because
is because
I didn't
I'm
create
withholding love
me,
from myself. And I
except
don't
for
mean
that I
a,
sort of did.
you know, ego
Because
love. I mean a, you know, being
somewhere in the
grateful
Bible
that
I
God
read,
created
"Ye are
me. I'm just
gods
a
and know
creation
it
of God.
not." I think it's in the
And I'm
New
not talking
Testament.
about
Jesus
just me,
said
I'm
it.
talking about everybody.
I don't hear that a lot from the
so
pulpits of the
How
churches.
is it that
"Ye are
I could
gods."
ever
Yeah, you
condemn
really
anybody
are.
else?
Yeah.
I
don't-
can't because they also
you know,
I stumbled
created
upon
by
that
God.
myself
Yeah,
as
that's
going
right.
through the Bible.
And that's
So
what
But,
holding the immaculate
that's pretty
concept for
profound.
somebody is I all know. about. I mean,
gods and know it
that's
not.
kind of a Catholic thing.
I think
because
we're
you
like
usually
toddlers
relate
trying to
Mother
figure
Mary
it
to
out. We're running
that
around.
phrase.
in
Well,
our
what does
diapers.
immaculate concept mean?
You know, what
Well,
do
it
they
means
mean?
it means just
changing.
realizing that if
Changing.
I see you and you're
And the
doing
only,
something that's
unfortunately,
just
the
a
only
little off
person that can
course,
change
I
you
can
is
hold the
yourself.
immaculate concept. Well, the really neat thing is to just
doesn't
recognize
really
that you have a
mean
divine spark
to be
within,
off course,
and that God
and
lives
she means
within
to be
you and
more
not
on
without
course,
you.
and so I will
Well, that's what
imagine
led to it.
that
because
she
that's
is
what
on
led to
course.
my
So,
thoughts. I was
so
thinking,
I'm actually,
okay,
like treasure
when
mapping
I was young, I used to meditate
for
on
you
a
in
candle.
a divine
I'd see the
sort of a
flame on the
way by
candle.
holding the
And I
immaculate
thought, you know,
concept
I
that
need
you
to
will
have that burning
improve
sensation in my
upon
heart.
a situation
So I'm
that
going to see a flame
maybe
in my
I
heart.
observe to be
And the
something less
flame,
than
you know, is
what's
about an
right.
inch high.
I mean, and we
I was
see
trying
that
to
in all
figure out
kinds of
how to
people.
make that
Obviously, I'm using you
hotter,
for an
the
example,
feeling
but we see
hotter,
somebody
so
that
that it felt
is
more
acting
like
a little
love.
out of
And then
sorts,
for some odd reason,
and
that
you
thought
can,
came to
but
me.
you
The
can
reason
go
that I
within and you
didn't
can say,
feel
well, that's
as much
all
love
right.
as I
You
should
know,
feel is
they
because
can
I'm
do
withholding
better.
love
I'll
from
hold the
myself.
immaculate
And I
concept
don't mean
for that.
and I won't hold that
you know,
against
ego
them.
love.
I
Yeah.
mean being
Yeah, I think
grateful that
that's,
God
makes
created
it
me. I'm
easier
just
to
a
forgive
creation of
people.
God.
I think if we
And I'm
all
not
treated
talking
each
about
other
it
that
just
way,
me. I'm talking about
always.
everybody. You know,
I
so
mean, this
how
planet
is
probably
it that I
wouldn't
could
have the
ever
wars
condemn anybody else?
and the hatred
I
and the
can't because they
angers and the
also were
fights that-
created by God.
Oh,
Seems
yeah,
to
that's
have
right.
right now.
I mean, you look
And
at
that's
the Middle
what
East,
that's
and
what
you think,
holding
well,
the
why
immaculate
can't you guys
concept for
forgive
somebody
each
is
other?
all
Just
about.
get
I mean,
over it.
that's
Oh,
kind
it's
of a Catholic
escalating
thing
over there
because you
too.
usually relate Mother Mary to
Saudi Arabia
That phrase.
Well, what does immaculate
and
concept mean?
Iran are at
You know,
all
what do they
odds,
mean?
and
Means,
they're
it
both
means
going
just
after Iran,
realizing that
you know?
if I see you and
Yeah.
you're doing something that's just a
It's
little off
escalating
course,
as of today.
I can
And it's
hold the
ancient.
immaculate
It's just
concept
It is
ancient.
that
silly.
And it goes
Jean
back to
doesn't
Abraham.
really mean
I mean,
to be
Will they
off
ever stop
course,
fighting?
Yeah, I
and
know.
she means to be
And then
more
now they
on
want to bring
course,
in the
and
rest
so
of the
I will
world, you know?
imagine
Forget about
that she is on
just
course.
them.
So
Let's
I'm
bring in
actually,
America and
like
France and
treasure
Germany
mapping
and-
for you.
The fact of the matter
in a
is,
divine sort
if
of
everyone
way by
improves,
holding
it's
the
like if you
immaculate
mow your
concept
own
that you
yard
will
and make your
improve
home look nice,
upon
it
a
will
situation
spread to
that
the neighborhood.
maybe I
So
observe
if you
to be
become
something
more
less than
Christ-like,
what's right.
everybody else
I mean, and
will.
we see that
It'll
in all
actually
kinds
have
of
an
people.
effect.
Obviously,
Everybody
I'm using you for an example, but we
on
see
the planet
somebody
knows what you're
is
doing. They
acting
know
a
what
little
we're doing
out of
tonight
sorts
on this little
and
radio
you can,
thing.
but you can
At
go
some
within and you
level
can
of
say,
their
well,
consciousness.
that's all right.
How's
you
that
know,
for a concept?
they can do better. I'll hold
One
the
times one
immaculate
times one
concept for
equals
them.
one.
That's
And
right.
I won't hold
I
that
mean, that's
against them.
profound.
Yeah.
But
You cannot,
yeah, I
by
think that's
law,
makes it
by
easier to
cosmic
forgive
law,
people.
be
I think we all
thinking of
treated
one
each other that way
person
always.
without them thinking of you back
mean,
at some
this
level. The planet probably wouldn't have the wars
I
That's
mean,
that's really
and the
neat.
hatred
I mean, it's
and
profound.
the
Yeah.
angers and the
So
fights.
thoughts
that
or energy
Oh,
seems
yeah.
to
we've
have
been
right
talking
I
now.
about
mean, you look in the Middle East and you think,
and the
well, why
influence
can't
matter,
you
but
guys
also
forgive each other?
thoughts
Just get over it.
Oh, it's
Shake hands.
escalating
Empathic.
over there too. Saudi
And you
Arabia
can travel on them.
So they're
and
actually moving.
Iran are at odds and they're
And
both
energy.
going after dirty
and they hit a
human,
source.
Human.
So you think about somebody
It's
they're thinking about you at the
escalating
same
it's-
time today.
Well, that's
And it's
telepathy.
ancient. It's just
Yeah,
ancient.
and there's no time and
Silly.
space.
And it goes
until
back to Abraham.
That's true.
I mean, if they just
Will they ever
studied it.
stop fighting?
Yeah, I know.
And
I
then
don't know
now
how
they
in
want
the
to
world
bring in the
Mercury
rest of
and
the
Pisces
world.
took
you
us
know.
to that.
Forget about
Comment,
just
but-
them.
Do you want to know something?
Let's bring in America
You
and
talk about
France and
Mercury and
Germany and-
communications. The fact of the matter is,
The old phone books
if
that we
everyone
had when I was a
improves,
little
it's
boy
like if you
growing up
mow your own yard and make
had
your
God
home
Merc
look
on the
nice,
cover.
it
Really?
will
Can
spread
Can you
to the
believe that with
neighborhood.
the
What
wings?
the
So if you
on
become
the
more
hat.
Christ-like,
So see, at inner
everybody
levels we
else
know all
will.
of this.
Yeah.
It'll actually have an effect.
At outer
Everybody
levels we resent the
on the
fact
planet
that we
knows
have
what you're
to
doing.
come
They know
into
what we're doing
some
tonight
sort
on
of
this little radio thing.
proper
some
way
level
of
of their
expressing
consciousness.
ourselves.
How's
So
that
when
for
we
a
see
concept?
tools that God gave us,
sometimes when
very
the Holy
natural
Spirit
tools
won.
such
That's
as
right.
astrology.
I mean, that's profound.
Sometimes we
that
rebel against it
you
because it will
cannot,
make
by
us
law,
have
by
to
cosmic
take
law,
accountability
be thinking
for
of
our
one
actions because
person
astrology is based on
without
free
them
will
thinking
choice.
of you back.
So if
at
you've got
some
a
level.
Mercury in Pisces and you're
That's
prone to
really neat.
depression,
I mean, that's profound.
Yeah.
so thoughts are
And you live in
energy.
a gravitational
Mercury,
pull.
we've
It's
been
easier to
talking
go
about
down than
Mercury.
it is to go up.
And they influence
It
matter,
might
but
be,
also thoughts are
Time for you to look
telepathic.
at that and
Do something else about it, and you can
Since
travel.
it's
It's
easy
easy to
to
go
go
down. So they're actually
to
movement.
movement
And
and
the real
energy.
trick of the trade is to go
And
up
they hit a
into
source.
inspiration. So you think about
It
something,
takes effort to
somebody
be in there
inspired
thinking
when
about
you're
you at the same
depressed.
time.
Yeah. So that's
It
telepathy.
takes effort to pull yourself out of
And,
it. And there's no time
so
and
a lot of
space
people
and
wanna
telepathy
medicate
themselves.
That's
Pulls
true.
addictions,
That's kind of
medication.
a profound thought.
Yeah.
So Mercury thinking you're
I don't know how
depressed.
Mercury and Pisces took
let's
us to
go take
that
an antidepressant
comment, but
Do you want to
the
know
bad
something?
guys
You talk about
take
Mercury and
full advantage
communications.
of that. Every commercial you see on TV
The old
right
phone
now,
books that we had when I was
between
a
the
little boy
hours
growing
of
up
4 and 9 are medical.
had God Mercury
Oh
on
my
the
gosh,
cover.
I know. I
Really?
was watching
Can you
them
believe
last
that
night.
with
I'm
the
thinking,
with the
well, that
wings
was
just
medical.
on the
this is all
hat?
about sick people.
So see, at inner levels,
And
we
the
know
funny
all
thing of
this.
it
Yeah.
is, they're all smiling
At outer
and they're
levels, we
laughing,
resent the fact
and they've
that
got
we
a
have
dog,
to
and there's
come
water,
into
and they're throwing
some
frisbees,
sort of
and they're having a wee of a time. But
proper
they're all
way of
sick,
expressing
and
ourselves.
the
So when
announcer
we
is
see
telling you
tools
how
that
many
God
different
gave
ways
us,
you're going to
very
die
natural tools such as
if you take this
astrology,
product.
sometimes we rebel
It's
against it
just
because it
wacky.
will make us
From 4 to 9.
to take
Interesting.
accountability
And the people are
for our
smiling,
actions
going,
because
"Thank
astrology
you.
is based on free will
I'm
choice.
going to take this pill
So
because
if you've got a
I really
Mercury in
want to feel all
Pisces and
those
you're
side effects.
Yeah.
prone to
And my heart
depression,
might stop in the middle of this, but that's all right.
and you live in a gravitational pull, it's easier
That's
to go
not
down
true.
than it is to go up.
No.
And
it might
I'm
be,
from the school of natural. Time for you to
seriously,
look at that and do something.
you're not
else
gonna
about
see
it.
me in the hospital
Since it's
at the end
easy
of
to
my
go
days.
down to depression.
You're going to be.
And the
couldn't
real trick of the
pee
trade
me.
is
I
to
told
go
my
up
husband, "You had to
into
take me in the back and
inspiration.
shoot me before I-"
It takes effort to
I'm
be
kidding.
inspired.
I'm
when you're
kidding.
depressed.
Yeah. You're
It
going to
takes
get one of
effort
those
to pull
beds
yourself out of it.
that with
so a
an
lot of
electric
people
motor
wanna
that
medic-
sits up and just sit me up and let me do one more chart
Yeah, no kidding.
and go
There's no
and-
such thing as retirement in my world. What are you going to do? Sit there and twiddle your thumbs?
Yeah, I know.
Knit?
I know.
I don't know. Anyway, that's Mercury and Pisces. All these things we're talking about is Mercury and Pisces. On the 31st, it will leave, and we will feel very aggressive. We will be a little bit trigger happy with our thoughts for the whole month of April, pretty much.
What do we do to counteract that?
Patience.
Okay.
Develop patience in your thinking processes. Truly, your thoughts are like a highway, and they're full of cars. Some of those cars are old, beat-up cars. Some of them are brand new, and they're fast. So you have to sort of clean up the highway. Maybe develop an ability to say what cars are allowed on the highway and what cars aren't. you know,
Okay. Yeah.
and how fast you can travel. No, in all reality, just call to Archangel Michael, my hero, and ask him to guard your thoughts, because half of your thoughts are absolute garbage. You just need to let them go on by.
A
What
lot
hap-
of your thoughts aren't your own thoughts, too. There
That's
are
right.
such things as floating thought forms or grids and force fields of other people's energy, and they're particularly heavy in big cities, and they're a little lighter out in the country. That's one of the reasons it feels good to be out in big sky country, which is where we are, because the energy force fields of other people's thoughts are
the mass consciousness.
the mass consciousness is so much less.
And it is amazing. When I go into the city, I just feel the pressure of everybody's consciousness.
Yeah.
There, you can, if you're out in the country for a long time and you go in the city, it's a culture shock. You feel this force.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's thoughts being energy. They do influence matter. It is really good to get a handle on what you're thinking and what thoughts you're allowing to go through your mind, especially if you've got issues. The issues that are negative, issues toward people that are not positive,
Because thoughts are things.
and they influence matter, like
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
said. So controlling them, Mercury and Aries, it's a good idea. Now, the thing about Aries energy is it's independent and it's leadership oriented, and it goes where angels fear to tread.
Really.
So a lot of times you get trigger happy and fast because you get something on your mind, you want to move. And if somebody tries to stop you, you may not want to put up with that.
Oh, I
So
see.
you will see a lot more road rage, traveling down the road, people yelling at each other in cars, people with guns. I know that's an issue that we're dealing with a lot in the world, especially in the United States. And I mean, I'm not against guns. I live in Montana. I mean, you got to have a little bit of a gun here and there.
Well, you need to,
Grizzly bears and stuff.
yeah, need to be able to protect yourself.
But, trigger happy Aries is a way to get yourself in trouble if you can't learn to control it. So it starts, and it's an energy. You know that some people are addicted to anger.
Now, how do they become addicted to it?
It's an adrenaline.
What happens?
It's an adrenaline.
Okay.
So somebody that physically abuses somebody else over and over
They
again.
get a rush off of
They
it.
get a rush off of it, yeah. I think there's a little bit more than that. There might be some ghost behind it or disembodied spirits behind it.
Discarnates and one thing and another. Yeah.
And this is the most important thing to remember about Mercury, I think, is that since your thoughts all the time are not your own, many times are not your own, especially when they're negative, you might be influenced by something other or outside of yourself, such as a disembodied spirit who can only communicate telepathically. So they can ride on the energy of thought, and they can put thoughts into your head, such as, I know this seems off the subject a little bit, but not really, because Mercury's in Pisces right now. People that smoke and want to quit smoking,
Right.
they try everything they can, and then they have these thoughts. Right when they think they're getting a mastery on it, they're done, the thought comes forward.
Hey, how about one more cigarette, Terry?
Just one more.
Yeah,
Ain't gonna hurt
it's
you.
just gonna be one.
Just one. And
You've done a good job. You've been off of it for a week, and one won't hurt.
as a matter of fact, how about just a puff? You don't even have to do the whole thing. Just a puff.
Oh, I know. It's insidious, isn't it, when you think about it?
Only thing about that movie Ghost, that
Yeah.
really scary Patrick Swayze long time ago, Demi Moore movie.
Excellent movie.
That ghost on the train who had to have a cigarette, and I think he smashed the cigarette machine. He got so powerful in his thoughts that he created that
Yeah.
manifestation. And I think ghosts can do that. They can literally, they need a body, so they got to use yours. So what they have to do is convince you that you want a cigarette so they can get the rush. And what they do is what they did in the movie. Whoopi Goldberg was channeling all those guys. I think we talked about this in a show.
Right.
Those little ghosts would jump in her body, and she would even squirm because she could feel them getting in there.
Right.
Well, you take a puff off of a cigarette, you get this rush.
Right.
How do I know that? I don't know. I'm just speculating here.
Well, it's just one of those things that we know.
A tingle in your crown, it's it's a
So anything addictive like that, I mean, we're talking about cigarettes, but there's many other ways that you can be addicted. It's
thoughts are-
usually from some other source.
yeah. And so we're talking about Mercury. Another thing about thinking processes, you can think, I'm really hungry right now. I think I'm going to pull in and have a taco over there at Taco Bell. And there's nobody for miles going into Taco Bell until you have that thought. And the thought you infuse with emotion because you're so hungry, and then all of a sudden everybody else picks up on your thoughts and there's a line by the time you get to Taco Bell. Normally there would never be a line at this time of day. So thoughts are energy.
That's interesting.
You think it too emotionally. If you take that mental and you put it in emotions,
Yeah.
you're creating, and everybody's hearing your creation, and they're going to get there first.
That's funny.
I had a friend who said once that she was very careful about letting anybody know when she was going to go shopping. 'Cause,
Like just
seriously,
telling anybody
yeah,
physically.
She would
Yeah.
just keep it to herself
Yeah.
and she would try not to think about it. She'd try not to want anything too much because it was like clockwork. People would start showing up that wouldn't show up. And then she'd have a long line at the cashier, which normally should never be long, on a.
Yeah. She wants to go get those green shoes that she just loves. And if she thinks about it too much, she gets there, they're all gone.
Yeah, exactly. Now you try this. You experiment with this. First of all, think of something you really, really want in the middle of the afternoon when you know nobody else is there. And you watch how powerful your thoughts are. And you create with your thoughts.
That's interesting.
Only when you infuse them with emotions, of course. But so that's why you want to know where your Mercury is. Now, the first few shows we've done, we've talked a lot about the moon, how important it is to see where the moon is because it's the only luminary that travels around the earth. And it does influence your emotional body. And we always believe when we feel something, it's got to be, because I feel it. Is that true?
Yeah.
But in all reality, it could be a little story. What you're feeling may not be what's really going on. Furthermore, have you ever stood in a line or in a group of people and started picking up their feelings?
I don't
Standing
know.
standing next to someone who might be sick. All of a sudden you sort of feel sick. It's like, am I sick? Am I getting it?
Interesting.
Have you ever done that?
Not that I know of, but maybe so.
In your whole life, you've never stood next to someone and then sort of
So,
felt what they were. I mean, not intentionally, just all of a sudden you pick up their stuff.
well, I suppose I have. Maybe I wasn't aware consciously of what was going on.
So, I mean, it's just another example of thoughts being energy, and they can jump on, from one person to another.
Right.
Whether they're true or not, depends on how much energy you allow them to occupy inside of you,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. The moon, emotions, and Mercury being what you think about, are the two things, those are the two puppies that I always watch in astrology. Far beyond any and every other thing that is going on for the mood of the moment, the moon and the Mercury tells the story.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There's 360 degrees in a circle. So those planets are going to be at some number in that 360-degree circle at a given time on a given day. All day long, they will be moving around that circle. And you can actually see, based on your time of birth, what kind of energy, whether it's a positive energy or a negative energy, between the way you think and the way that you feel. So whenever I say the word moon, you think feelings. Whenever I say the word Mercury, think thoughts.
Okay.
And that's how you can determine whether it's a good time to discuss an emotional problem that you may have in your marriage or in your relationship with another. What any kind of emotional attachment that you might have in any kind of situation. And then also, if you want to have a meeting to make decisions about anything, you want to know where your Mercury is. So Mercury deals with thought, decisions, anything that has to do with communication, anything that has to do with talk, the word, how you're saying the word.
Oh, yeah.
And you can literally see what you're vulnerable to, because astrology is based on free will choice, and truly your God will never interfere with your free will choice. You get to do whatever you want. However, there are consequences, and that is why you want to know your astrology. What am I vulnerable to do today? What is going to be my positive choice? What's going to be my negative choice? And so maybe my point, going back to saying how unpopular astrology is in certain circles, is that if you know that you could do better, wouldn't you do better?
Yeah.
So seeing your astrology would tell you that you have a choice. And so that would give, a practical reason to live, like more to the story.
Mhm.
It would make sense out of life. And so certain preachers that might not be nice wouldn't have so much control over you, because you have control over yourself. Basically, your astrology gives you control over yourself, making a long story short.
Yeah, and
The churches wouldn't be, you're a sinner, you're going to, hell for whatever, because you have control over that,
and you don't have to go through them to get to your
to get to the answers for your own being.
Yeah.
So I think your body's your temple, your heart's your altar. That's where your real church is. Now, it's nice to get together with a community and pray together. Of course, a community that prays together stays together.
That's right.
A family that prays together stays together. But you yourself are your own church, and your heart is your altar. And go to that. And go to that over and over again. And purge yourself of all these places that you've made bad decisions, and your astrology will show where that is.
And I think the 7 churches are the 7 chakras.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Chakras.
Yeah. 7 energy centers.
Right.
And it's referred to in the Bible. I don't know where. I'm not much of a Bible scholar, but that's where those light centers are. And if this is our church and God's within, well then.
Yeah, that's another thing. I think that a lot of the outer churches, and I know there's truth in all churches, but I think the churches lead us to look outside of ourselves rather than inside for the
That's
answer.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And all the answers lie within. And astrology is energy that attacks you inside. It literally comes after your chakras if it's in a negative, way, and it blocks the Christ or the good in you. I think all of us are destined to be ye are gods and know it not. We're all supposed to become the Christ. I think that Jesus said, "These things I do, ye can do also, and greater things, because I go unto my Father," because he wanted Lazarus to pick up his bed and walk.
Yeah.
And the bed was his Lazarus' karma.
Oh, yeah. And it's like the handkerchief thing. You take the handkerchief by the point and you draw it up, and all the rest of the handkerchief comes with it.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus was doing. He was teaching us how to do all these things.
So, we can't do it. He said that he couldn't do it for us. We had to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And I even think carrying the cross, it's going to be Easter here pretty soon. But Jesus carrying the cross, he wouldn't let anybody else help him because he realized it was his own baggage that he had to take care of and carry.
That was so symbolic, of everything that he had to go through.
And that being said, you have a round trip ticket. You come in with your baggage, you got to clean it up yourself, and then fly back.
You do.
So Mercury, the planet that thinks all the time, what are you thinking about? What are you looking at inside yourself? What do you see? How does your suitcase look? Does it got the right, you got your socks, you got your toothbrush, you got your, is your life together?
And you can only have 3 ounces of that and 3 ounces of this.
Yeah. So Mercury is constantly feeding information into your little big brain.
Uh-huh.
And you're making decisions all day long. This is schoolroom Earth. So not knowing your astrology is quite dangerous, I think. And the reason I think that is because I've studied it and I know what it is. But we've got a lot of people out there in the world that are walking around very depressed, very messed up, because they don't have a clue.
Well, it's a roadmap, right? I mean, and if you're...
Compass, yeah.
And a compass. And if you're out in the middle of America and you want to go somewhere in particular, but you haven't got the foggiest idea of how to get there, you just need a map and a compass.
What's really cool about astrology, too, is relocation. Okay, you're taking the time, date, and place of a birth. Time, date, place, longitude, latitude. Where are you standing when you were born? If you move to another side of America, let's say you're born in California and you move to Boston,
Right.
You're going to experience your astrology a little different. And so you can actually draw a chart up to see what it's going to make you feel like in a different location. So if you're from, where were you born?
Well, I was born in the Midwest, near Des Moines, Ames, Iowa.
So now you're in immigrant Montana.
Yeah.
Population 2.
So I'm 1,500 miles away. Population 2. Why, I was from such a small town that the population signs were back to back. No, anyway.
That was pretty. You know what? We need sound effects for our show.
Yeah.
Nah.
That wasn't the joke. Anyway.
Well, anyway, being an immigrant is from any point of the universe that you were born in. Universe. Some of us come from other planets.
I believe it. Yeah. How come you look so strange?
I know.
I'm from another planet.
You walk into some of these towns, literally, and it feels like you're in a Star Wars bar. Just every shape and size. And
Well, expand on that a little bit, being from another planet. Why do you say that? And what are your thoughts behind that statement?
I do believe there's life on many other planets.
Are they at another level of frequency?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason we can't see it is because we're dense. We're dense because we haven't put on that incredible, moral, proper, honorable, loving, kind way to act. And it takes, it's hard because most people around,
Well, plus we're limited in our frequencies. Just like we can hear only from a certain frequency low to a certain frequency high, we can only see from a certain low to a certain high frequency.
Right.
Anything beyond one way or the other, we're not going to see. We can shoot probes and drop them onto planets as much as we want, and we may never see what's really going on.
That's true. One of my thoughts is that, the reason you can't go to Venus or see life on Venus, for instance, because Venus represents love and beauty. If you haven't become the fullness of complete unconditional love and beauty on this planet, you'd be really uncomfortable on Venus because everybody is amazingly
Beautiful.
and they've got the mastery. They don't lose their harmony. They don't, they're loving and kind all the time.
You'd be a real foreigner, wouldn't you?
You would be, and you'd be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So until you attain what what that planet represents, you can't go there. Except for maybe at inner levels. I don't know. Inner levels meaning when your body sleeps at night, your soul leaves your body and you go to places that are special to study and get ready for your next day of events.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your astrology is your roadmap, and then also you have other things that you do. You go to a places called retreats. There's a great book, oh my gosh, The Masters and the Retreats. It's by Anise Booth and Elizabeth Clare Prophet.
Right.
But it talks about all the masters and all the special places that they help us get to at inner levels or when our body sleeps at night. I mean, you don't just sit down, lay down, pull up the covers, go to sleep, and nothing happens.
I know it. I know. It's interesting to think that you could possibly just come to a complete standstill.
There's a whole nother life going on.
Yeah. And these are retreats that are just at an etheric level. They're at a higher level, and they're all over the planet. And you can go wherever you want to go. If you know about a particular retreat in the Himalayas or one over in Crete, you can call specifically for the angels to take you there.
And what you mean by calling is
pray.
Praying, and being specific about what it is you want.
Yeah.
You know. So I always like before I go to bed, I'll make a call to my hero, Archangel Michael, to take me to the highest place I can go where I can learn how to deal with my own psychology.
That's a good call.
And come back and be a better person and an example to other people, you know, how I can be more devoted, how I can be more, you know, in tune with those vibrations you're talking about, the higher realms. You know, and then I have these amazing dreams. You know, right when you get up in the morning, write down what your dream is. You can only remember it like 30 seconds, since maybe 30 nano. I mean, like, just immediately. You lose it, like, if you get up.
I had heard that if you, when you're coming back into your body, a lot of times you'll be dreaming about cars and things like that because things are starting to get physical again.
Right.
And every once in a while, I'm dreaming about these cars. You know, I mean, the brakes don't work properly, or there's something wrong, or there isn't something wrong, or whatever. But it's very interesting. But you're right. If you don't write it down right away, it's gone.
And there's a teaching in every one of your dreams. There is a teaching.
Yeah.
Usually you're the same person in all your dreams. You know, even though you recognize people, I think they represent some part of you. You know, and in fact, in life, you'll never attract to you anybody to you except for those that mirror back something that you're working on or you have a lesson to learn from them. You know?
I wanted to sing about those twin flames from South Pacific. You remember me mentioning them? Sam and Janet Evening. I thought you'd like that.
I love it.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, love is so neat. If you can
figure it out.
If you can figure it out. I know. It's a hard one to figure out.
Man, it's only because we're all at different points of evolution, so to speak. Not that I believe in Darwin's theory of evolution, but, you know, we're all at different levels of learning.
Yeah.
And I think that we've all been assigned different people, and so you're not going to see the same people I see because you don't have the same lessons to learn as I do.
Right.
But you and I have something to learn from each other, because else why would we be sitting here?
Yeah, why would we be together? And I've learned all mine. Thank you very much, and good night. Come back, Terry. I know, it's true. We're hooked up with each other because
there are no accidents in life and in the people that are in your face, and whether you like them or not, you better love them.
That's right.
Else history repeats itself over and over again. You'll be back doing that dance again.
So what do you want to talk about church stories? I want, you know what I was thinking about? I was thinking when I was a little boy, when you mentioned that I was a little boy in the boys choir in St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Des Moines, Iowa. And I was in that boys choir for 5 years. And here's what's interesting. We got paid. We didn't get paid very much, but we got paid. But the girls who were in the girls choir never got paid. Now, isn't that strange? But anyway, so I got my monthly pay, which was a couple of dollars and some coins in a little manila envelope, and I left it on a bus. And I just felt terrible about that. And the following day, I contacted the bus company to see if anybody had found it, and one thing in there. Talk about the innocence of a child. But nobody's going to return that to me. Somebody just said, "Hey, got some money here." But anyway,
They didn't return it?
No, I never.
Oh my gosh, that's because you didn't know how to make the call.
If
I had
known,
somebody break in my car and steal my purse. Why I left my purse in the car, I have no idea. But I started there was something very special in that purse that I had to have back, and I was brokenhearted about it. It wasn't money, it was some other thing.
Yeah.
So every day I was on my hands and knees praying that the angels would find that purse. I didn't care about the rest of it. If they won the money, fine, they could have the money. Just please bring me back that item. And I am not kidding. 3 weeks later, I get a call from a guy who is a conductor on a train, and he found my purse on the train track.
Oh my!
And he called me back and he said, "Are you missing your purse? There's no money in it, but you got all this stuff, that looks important."
So you made a prayer.
The chance of that happening. This happened in Kansas City.
Okay.
But I know I sent my angels on it. I just, I was so burdened by that. Talk about thoughts influencing.
So you know enough to pray to an angel or make a call.
Well, I've been making calls for years to angels.
See, I didn't know back when I was in the boys' choir to do that.
But see, you're in church, and they're not teaching you how to make the call. You have a guardian angel that's assigned to you that sits there with his arms crossed, hoping and praying you're going to tell him to do something. He's assigned to you from God to serve you. Angels are angels of God's consciousness. They serve. And I'm telling you, I got my purse back. The odds of that, 10 trillion to 1.
I know. That's pretty amazing.
Except for when you hang out with your angels and you talk to them and you send them on jobs every day. I just want everyone who's listening to the show to imagine your angel standing right next to you with his arms crossed, tapping his feet, waiting for you to give him a job to do.
Tapping his fingers on the table.
Yeah.
What's next? What are we going to do?
God, I hope they say a prayer. Please
Isn't that
tell
something?
me to do something. I'm so
But they can't help us in time and space without our...
They can't interfere with your free will choice. That's the bottom line. That is the greatest gift you have, to be or not to be. Shakespeare tried to tell you that,
And you talked about ministers a while ago, and I want to mention there was a minister at this Episcopal church whose name was Father Kim, and he was one of the sweetest people I have ever known.
That's amazing.
To this day, he stands out as one of the nicest people I've ever known. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have been brought up in that Episcopal church. I may not be going to that church now, but it set the sail and it's groundwork for where I am today.
There was Sister Gertrude for me. I'll never forget her. She allowed me as a 6th grader to come in. I'm a Lutheran. I'm raised Lutheran. To come into a Catholic old folks home and help take care of the sweet senior citizens there. Now, I'll never forget her. She had the full garb, the whole gown all the way to the black, kind of gray, black gray, with all her little rosaries and stuff hanging out. Little, those caps and
all starched and
long scarf type thing, full skirt, She was the coolest lady I ever met.
And what kind of a personality did she have? Did she have a sense of humor?
Oh, yeah. And she was very, very devoted to Mother Mary, who is somebody I never heard of because the Lutherans don't teach about Mother Mary in the Lutheran Church. So I go into her chapel and I see all their nuns. There was probably 30 nuns that worked in this place. It was called Little Sisters of the Poor. And they were in there doing the rosaries, and it was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. All the stained glass, all the statues of different, Jesus, St. Joseph. It was just amazing to me because I've never seen anything like that. It's interesting, in the Lutheran Church, they don't have focuses that remind you or put you in the mood. You just go in there and there's a little thing, there's a cross. That's it.
Yeah, probably just a simple cross, a gold cross.
See, I like the mood. Set the mood.
Right.
Give me the beautiful images so that I can feel God coming through those images and expanding his presence in my world. And I want the beautiful music, the masses, the Bach, the Beethoven, the Mozart masses to put me in the mood, so I can feel what those beautiful nuns were feeling. So they taught me how to do the rosary, and I love doing it.
Oh, that's
Only
great.
It's really interesting. When I was a little girl, the Hail Mary went like this: Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death.
Right.
I was like, God, that's kind of negative, isn't it?
Did you think that at the time you were saying it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't understand why they pray for us sinners. I'm like, am I a sinner? I didn't know enough to know that I might have some issues to work on.
So there's a new rosary.
So then I got into my 20s and I ran across a new rosary. And I believe this rosary came from Mark and Elizabeth Prophet. And it was called the 14th Rosary, where I got it from. But they were saying it like this. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sons and daughters of God, now and at the hour of our victory over sin, disease, and death. Victory over sin, disease, and death. Not at our death, but at our victory over. So, man, that just put a whole new concept in my mind. Victory over death.
I know it's a major concept, and the Episcopal churches were beautiful in their structure. They were very much like the Catholic Church.
Right, really pretty.
Yeah, but of course you don't have the 14 Stations of the Cross. You don't have Mother Mary, Jesus, and Joseph's statuary, and that's why I was particularly thrilled when I came to know about Mother Mary, back about 1973. And it was like it filled in a major puzzle piece on this puzzle that I was working
with. It's like God
with.
the Father, God the Mother. You got to have mom and dad to make son or daughter.
Right.
You can't just do it with the father.
Yeah.
I guess.
So usually we refer to the Father, Mother, God, and we think of the Father as the Alpha, the Mother as the Omega, and Mother, Mater, and Mary all mean
Mare,
Mare,
or a ray of light.
The Mother Ray, which is all the physical world.
Right. Isn't it fascinating? I mean, when you break everything down, religion is realigning yourself, realigning yourself with God. Altar is the alteration. You go to your altar to alter yourself. Religion, realign.
I like that. I hadn't heard that.
What are some of the other things that break down?
I got a friend that made a list. He's practically got a book of all these different words that really mean something,
Yeah, it's well, when I was a little girl, I went to that Catholic church and did my volunteer work. I'd go back to my Lutheran minister, and you know what? This is how much he influenced me. I don't even remember his name. You remember your preacher, your priest's name.
Right.
I don't.
Oh, that's too bad.
But I was there all the time, so I should remember that.
Right.
Nonetheless, I would go back and say, how come we're not doing the rosary? It's so beautiful. And why don't we have statues in here? Why don't we make it kind of, I'm just a little girl. I don't know any better. And the preacher was like, oh no, that's idolatry, or worshiping of idols.
Worshiping of idols.
Of course, I didn't get that, but I'm like, worshiping of idols, And then when I became 18 or 19 or 20, I started doing some research on Martin Luther, the guy that started a Lutheran church. I found out that he was Catholic originally, and he got mad at the politics of the church and decided to go start his own church. And what he did is he took all the statues out of the Lutheran religion. Said, can't have statues anymore. No more Mother Mary, no more Jesus, no more Saint Germain on the altar, or Saint Joseph.
Yeah, so he just kind of wiped the slate clean.
Yeah, but he forgot to take the masses out. So Lutherans still use the same kind of masses as the Catholic.
Really?
Which, that was so refreshing to get that information, because I could not understand why there was division between religions. I don't get that. I mean, I think there's truth in all religions, and they should all get along if they're really about love.
Yeah.
Why would you stone, Jesus taught us to be our brother's keepers, so shouldn't religions be keeping each other?
And there's so many different routes up the mountain, You've got all kinds of different trails.
And they all go to the same place.
They go to the same peak.
Yeah. It's crazy. Anyway.
What else did you want to cover on tonight's show?
Well, I wanted to know if you had any more children's stories about church.
Well, I'm trying to think. I actually, when I started entertaining in Kansas City, which is where we have a little bit of it. It was just I was about 20 years old, and
a little bit of a tie, he says. I think it's a pretty big one.
I didn't go to church for about 12 years, because I'd spent so much time in church as a young boy and growing up that I just kind of my pancake kind of flipped over to the other side, and I just literally, and now knowing cycles that I know about the 12s and the zodiac and astrology and one thing and another, maybe I was just like taking some sort of a cosmic break to prepare for, this period where I would come to want to study the teachings, spiritual teachings of East and West. But
You were waiting for your butter and maple syrup.
but I loved everything that I was given as a youth, and I think about how sweet it was that we all had to go to church. We all had to, we had Saturday night. We had to take a bath. We had to shine our shoes. We had to get our clothes ready. I can remember our little brown shoes getting all scuffed up. It was almost like we had to paint them,
Oh, patent leather was really popular then when we were little too. So.
Was it?
And I had little white gloves with lace on them, and my little purse, and
So
my
you
little
got all
hat.
dressed up, and
yeah,
and think
loved
about how neat it is that your mother and your father made you, not made you, but it was a part of your ritual.
It was a
family ritual, and I'm really grateful. Right, you all.
Right, you all.
I'm really grateful that my mother and father did that for me.
Me too.
I had proper training.
And
I can't
those
think
little
of any
dresses, unless they trolled, they weren't worth wearing.
other. Really.
My parents would buy me clothes, and I would just get in front of the mirror and twirl. That skirt would just, that's the way the skirts were back then.
Yeah, they had little puffy.
Puffy everything, lace, and oh my gosh,
I know girls
so
are supposed
feminine.
to look like girls.
Yeah, very feminine.
So what? You got any other church stories?
Well, then, of course, when you become a teenager, a church takes on a whole different color. So I got into this, I think I'll try every church, So one of my friends asked me to go to this Baptist church with him. We went on a hayride, and there was the cutest boy. So church became not about church, it became about boys.
Well, the hormones were kind of getting accelerated, both the boys and the girls, and so that's understandable. You're starting to look around and see
So I
what
was
the
ready
world...
to be converted to another religion.
The Church of Hayride.
Church.
So you went through that cycle. Did you come out okay at the other end? You have no
Absolutely.
idea.
I think for 3 years, I always dreamed about that little redhead kid that was there on that hayride. Never saw him again.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
I was like, that must have been the love of my life. And it happened in a church.
Well, what kind of a cycle are you going through astrologically at the age you were at that time then? What was the reason for some of this romance to begin to surface then? What line of your astrology clock were you on? I mean, were you...
Well, obviously, love has a whole lot to do with the Venus.
Okay.
And I think that when you're 7 years old, okay, from 0 to 7, you're still in your etheric, or you're still in the what is the word I want to say? It's like you're still the sponge. You're absorbing your environment.
Okay.
Okay, when you get to be 12,
Oh, yeah,
you
Maria
are...
Montessori kind of teaches that, too. You
Yeah.
are a sponge.
Maria Montessori is my hero.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of off the subject a little bit. I know there's a lot of Montessori schools in the United States, but if you're going to send your kids to Montessori school, make sure it's a real Marie Montessori established school.
Yeah, it's good.
In Kansas City, I know it's the Unity Church carries Madame Kaspari's
Really?
Montessori school. Madame Kaspari was a direct disciple, for lack of a better word,
Right.
of Marie Montessori.
Studied
So it's
directly
a real
under
one.
her. Yeah.
But I know they're everywhere, but there's some that are Montessori schools, but they're not really Marie Montessori schools.
So you were saying the first 7 years then you're like a sponge.
And 12, when you go all the way around the clock and you get to the 12 o'clock line, Capricorn,
Yeah.
your karma starts descending.
Yeah. And then what happens?
And then you'll find that you're starting to get in trouble. And you're making choices based on things that could get you in trouble. Hopefully you'll make the right choices, but many times you'll see kids break their arm, or, Capricorn rules the bones, and also the misuse of power. You've all of a sudden found that you've got a new use of power. Mom and dad are easily, ignored or rebelled against.
Oh, yeah.
It becomes easier to do that.
You don't
depending on-
want to. You don't want to be seen walking anywhere near your mother and father in the mall. Oh,
I do remember saying, Mom, could we're walking 3 feet ahead of you.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not really with you. You can just sort of, you know.
It's so amazing. I mean, it's just like it's a gear that gets clicked into.
Oh, what I would do to turn back. And she could always outwalk us. That was the thing,
Yeah.
you know. But anyway, so 12, your karma descends. I think
Okay.
sometimes some people who want to get through their stuff a little faster will, at inner levels before the Lords of Karma, ask for their karma to come a little earlier.
Oh,
So when you
interesting.
see a lot of tragedy in people's lives, usually that's what's happened. They're asking for more karma to work through faster. So
Before
they
the
can
age
get
of
on.
12, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
But after the age of 12, you see kids get in so much trouble because they don't understand. They haven't been given the understanding of what their life is about, that this is a schoolroom, that they have a roadmap and a compass, they have talents, they have weaknesses. Those weaknesses they need to overcome, which the astrology does show your weaknesses. Had they been taught to do better, I think they'd make better choices because they'd realize there's a reason for being.
Right.
And even the churches, we've talked so much about, they don't really drive that point home that there is a reason for being on earth, that you do have a round trip ticket, that you will go back, that there was a plan, and that the people in your life are not accidents, and the choices you make that are negative are not, that they do have consequences. Everything is cause effect.
Right.
So anyway, at 12, you're supposed to come into that. There's a great book called Odyssey of the Soul. Have you read that book?
I've
Odyssey by
read
the
parts of it. Yeah.
Who is that? Elizabeth Clare Prophet. Did she
Right.
write that one as well? Odyssey of the Soul. I mean, talk about getting a look at the way that your life, some of the things that you meet in life. It's sort of it's a fascinating book.
Well, even on a kind of a sidebar, Shakespeare wrote very interesting
Plays.
things too at deeper levels, almost encoded, in his plays and things like that, which, reflect on the things that the soul will go through and kind of the play acting that goes on here.
Well, I think that, again, bottom line, if you know better, you do better. And I think at this point, it would be really appropriate to just tell a little joke because we have been really getting serious.
Have you got a joke?
I do. And now, when I hear jokes, sometimes I forget them and I, have a little
So you have to write them down.
putting them back together again.
Yeah.
This one I'm going to ad lib.
Uh-oh.
So there was this person who died and went to heaven. And he stood at the pearly gates, and they came up with this really nice, fancy carriage to take him off to show him all the many mansions that our Father has in heaven. Now, you've heard that in the Bible, our Father has many mansions in heaven.
Right.
So he is really excited to go see all these mansions. So here comes the carriage. He gets in the carriage. They start driving down this golden road. And I mean, the mansions were huge. They were beautiful. They were amazing. And he was so excited because he knew he was going to get to live in one of these places because this was his new home. He was there in heaven. So he's driving down the road, looking at, oh, wow. Oh, look at that one. Oh, my gosh. And then gets down to the end of the road and he started noticing the houses were getting a little smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller till he got to the end of the road. And the carriage pulls into this driveway, and this house is like just this little hut. And he says to the driver, what are we doing here? And he said, well, the amount of money you spent up, this is what we thought you wanted. In respect to giving,
Oh my gosh.
giving charity, tithe.
Yeah.
Thought
this is what you wanted.
this was what you wanted.
Oh
This
my
is, how
gosh.
much money you sent our way. So basically, you have a bank account in heaven,
You do.
And it's all the good deeds you do and the money that you give to other people or the gifts that you give to other people. So don't ever be selfish or stingy with money.
And the law of the tithe is such an amazingly scientific law because if you will give back the 10%, and you can give it directly to a specific church, you can give it to
Charity.
the poor, you can give it to charity, whatever. But you take 10% of what you've earned and you give it back to God, and then that's the leaven.
Well, you look at that person that you're giving it to or that charity that you're giving it to, look at it as you're giving it to God.
Right.
You don't give it to the charity per se. You're giving this to God.
You're giving it back to God, and then God takes it and He multiplies it back out and gives you the 100% back. So you give Him the $10, and you'll get the 100 back, and then you got the 100, and you give Him back the 10 of the 100, and you get another 100 back. You see, so that's how it always keeps working.
Cause effect. Whatever
Yeah.
you send out, you're going to get back. So if you want a big house upstairs,
And to correct that joke that I tried to tell earlier, I was from such a small town that the city limit signs were back to back.
oh my God.
Or I was from such a small town that the statue in the park was a PFC on a dog. That'll take some thought versus a general on a horse,
I never realized that you tell jokes just like my husband. They go right over my head.
And I used to
It's like, what?
I used to tell jokes in the club, and the cornier the better. Actually,
Right,
I
that's
liked
true.
if I could
You're
get.
from the cornfields. I mean, come
I
on.
know, and if I could get the whole audience to go, "Oh, sing another song, please."
Yeah, really.
Then I was right on.
I was about ready to say, could you sing another song?
I don't have another song, but maybe we'll think of another one for next week.
Well, to wrap up this show, I just want to say, watch your new moon and your full moon, and if you don't know when the new moon and the full moon is in your personal chart, find out. And then also watch the new moon and the full moon in the sky, and you can also use that as a lever for making decisions. That's what we started the show out doing.
Right.
And March 30th, look forward to that day because Mercury's going to go into a stronger sign and you might feel better. So, that being said, it was fun.
It was fun, Jean.
And we'll see you.
Yeah. Thank you,
Next
Stephen,
show.
our engineer.
Thank
We
you,
are
Stephen.
grateful. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.